if you're anything like me, odds are you tend to find the service limit of many of the parts on your DR650 rather quickly. And one of the parts that I frequently found myself having to replace was the chain guide that gets bolted onto the swing arm. These are fairly expensive. I think Suzuki wants like 65, 70 bucks for these, and the aftermarket ones aren't any cheaper. So I figured out how to make these out of a $12 cutting board, and today I'm going to be sharing that knowledge with you. I'm also going to be sharing with you how you could possibly make an even heavier duty one that's going to hold up to some serious abuse, so stay tuned for that. Alright, so in order to build one of these budget chain sliders, you're going to need a pretty thick cutting board. This one's 3/8 of an inch thick. I got it at Walmart. I think it was 12 bucks. You're also going to need some nuts and bolts. I got these number 10 by 24 machine screws. They're 2.5 inches long, and I also went ahead and picked up some nylock nuts for them as well. And you're definitely going to want to use nylock nuts for this. You should probably also pick up some washers, but I have lots of them floating around my place, so I'm not too worried about that. Another thing you're going to need is this template I have made. You can print this out from the link in the description. Make sure you scale it. This line's 2 inches. That one's 1.5 inches. If you're making this for a bike that isn't a DR650, all I did to make this is I got all of the pieces that I still had from my old broken chain slider, and I just traced them out and filled in the gaps the best I could. So you really could do this on any bike, but this one's for a DR650, so that's that. Obviously, you're also going to need a couple tools for this. To cut it out, you can either use a hacksaw or, better yet, jigsaw. This one's obviously ancient, but it works just fine. File, and lastly, a drill and some associated bits to drill some holes. 3/16 bit and 1/4 inch bit is probably all you're going to need. So this is a pretty simple project, so let's dive into it. Alright, so first step is obviously going to be cut out all your templates, transfer them over to the cutting board with a Sharpie, grab your jigsaw, cut them out roughly to start. I'll also add if you have a bandsaw. It really is the way to go. It's way easier. I would start by doing the inside and outside ones together. That way I only have to do one cut here. Saves me some cutting, so let's get to it. So one thing you're going to run into is jigsaw makes quite a bit of heat. So you'll cut it out and it'll actually melt back together. So once I clean this up with the file, though, it'll be good to go. And sometimes it melts together enough where you may want to do second pass or just give it a bit of a crack. So got these roughly cut out. I'll clean them up with a file. Then I'll actually cut out my top and bottom pieces separately afterwards. Alright, now that I've got all these cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and file them super quick. So these top and bottom pieces here are pretty important on our chain guide. So if the original one from your Suzuki is still in decent shape, I'd recommend reusing it. Mine's actually pretty worn out, so I'm going to be making a new one out of the cutting board. So be sure to pay attention to this step. For best results, you do need to file a bit of an angle on the end like I have here, so pay attention. That should be enough. The chain will actually wear it in to the exact proper angle. So it's also really important with these top and bottom pieces that you make sure they're the right width. When you cut them out with the template, they're going to be about 1.5 inches. It's really important that you file them down to exactly 1 3/8 of an inch. Otherwise, you're going to have some fitment problems. You also need to really make sure that they're square. So I'm going to file them down right now. If it's quite a bit of material to remove, you may just want to cut it. Alright, now that I've got these all cleaned up, I can start drilling my holes on these. First I need to mark them. So, on the outside here, the top 3 holes are what mount it to the bike. So we're going to drill those at 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to center punch all those. If you're reusing the factory chain slider on the bottom, you're also going to want to drill those at 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters if metric is your flavor, because that is actually what the factory bolts would be. If we're going to use the homemade ones out of the cutting board, drill them at 3/16 for our number 10 machine screws. And either way, that's going to be the case for these top 2 here. So those are all center punched. I'll do this side. Then when it comes to drilling these, I'll show you that in a minute, because it can be a little more tricky. Now it's really important that you take these 2 pieces and overlay them and make sure that your holes all line up. Looks like mine are really close. So I'll just go through them one more time with the drill, and these 2 are totally perfect. Now would also be a good time to ensure that these top 3 are going to fit on your bike. Make any adjustments you may need to do there. Alright, so this step here is arguably the most challenging. What we need to do is drill holes straight through the edges of this cutting board to form our top and bottom slider pieces that bolt on. So you probably have extra cutting board left over. It's a good thing in case you mess one of these up. So hold the drill straight, hold it square, and let's get it done. That one looks like it turned out pretty good too. Let's see if it fits together though. So, if I were to be doing final assembly, I'd throw some washers on here, but for just test fitting, it's fine. Well, the one fits good. The other one is going to need a little bit of fine tuning with the drill. So, I'm going to go ahead and get that done. Alright, I've gotten the top bolted together. Now it's looking like a chain guide top. If using that stock bottom chain slider again, all I would do now, double check that your holes line up, then install this on the bike, slip this over the chain, bolt it together, voila. If you're using that homemade bottom chain slider, then you're going to need to drill a couple more holes. And the easiest way to do that is probably to just line this up in the chain guide where it goes, clamp it together, and drill it with it in place. That way you know you can't mess it up. So I'm going to give that a go right now. Alright, here we have ourselves a completed chain slider assembly, or chain guide rather. Should work pretty good. I found the cutting boards are really tough, seem to hold up for a long time, and if they do break, or if this bottom slider wears out, probably have lots of cutting board left over to just make a new one. So that's easy. Great cheap mod. Stop paying big money for the aftermarket ones. I think they're like $80. This costs less than $20, including the cutting board and all the nuts and bolts. So awesome. Let's go mount it on the bike. I'll show you how it looks.
How it looks. And here is how it looks mounted on the bike. It's been a fair while since I used a stock chain guide. I've been running these for about 5 years now. So I don't actually remember if the stock one uses nuts or if it's threaded. This one, I've just put a nut on the back of a bolt to mount them, so it's possible you may need some slightly longer M6 bolts to actually mount this on your bike. You can get those at a hardware store. So, if you're wanting to make a bit more of a heavy-duty version of this, it is the exact same process, except on the outside plate, what you want to do is go ahead and buy a thinner cutting board. They're really cheap, like $2. And also buy some 1/8" aluminum plate. You can get this at the hardware store, or any metal dealer will probably just give you some because it's such a small piece. Then all you do, use the same template, follow the same steps, and put it all together. Aluminum will actually cut with a jigsaw. Not the greatest, but it will work. Alternatively, you can use a hacksaw as well. So keep that in your toolbox as well. It works really good. I've had this one on my DR650 for 2 years now. Probably 25,000 kilometers. You can tell it's taken a lot of beatings, but it's never broken, and it's never broken off on the bike. So awesome mod. If you liked, all right, thank you for watching the video. Hope you learned something. Once again, I do have the link to that template in the description. I think for most guys, the standard one just out of the cutting board is going to be the ticket, but if you're really riding your bike hard, the aluminum might be the way to go. So either way, they're cheap, they're hardy, they're the way to go. Go save yourself some money, keep on riding, and consider subscribing if you want some more great content about how to dual sport for real people on a real budget.